Welcome back. This is Chicken Philosophy, the Meccan Revelations, part 74. If you're on your phone and you're seeing some shit down here and you're not full screen, click this, tap it, and then you can see. Okay, alright, cool. Everybody's here. Sorry for everyone else. Some of the slow kids have to... No, I'm just kidding. I'm not calling you a slow kid. I'm just absent-minded, multitasking. I get it. Sorry, I'm a little bit irritated this morning. YouTube. So, a little bit of personal history, if you'll indulge me for a moment. Years ago, I went to Shanghai, and there's me in Shanghai, and then I made a video. I made videos. I took all the video footage from my iPhone and strung them all together and added music, and because of my dad, I blame my dad. No, who's to blame? Jarre is to blame. Jean-Michel Jarre. Okay, fast version. So I used, is anything popping up? Probably it pops up, but if you click it, it says unavailable in your country, because just in the past, 16 hours, YouTube is, okay, I'm skipping ahead. So 6 years ago, I get this thing, I'm like, the Shanghai video that you made is blocked worldwide. I'm like, what the fuck? And it's like, it's because of this particular part where you use the Jarre, not all the Jarre, but this particular song of the Jarre, Jean-Michel Jarre, from his concerts in China, it's French, not being weird. Anyway, it's blocked. Sony doesn't allow it. So maybe it's Sony, but Jarre seems to be the only person that they're strictly enforcing. No, under no circumstances can you play this music. So I can't help but think that, okay, so what happened was, I was like, okay, so I muted it, right? And then later I come to realize, oh, no, they worked it out. Yeah, you can use Jarre. And so I have 4 minutes of my video muted for no reason. And so I re-uploaded the Shanghai video and I deleted the one that I had muted the 4 minutes of. And I'm sure that now, 6 years later, so because of that pre-established, canon that it's okay to use Jarre in YouTube videos now, when I started Secret of the Golden Flower, I made Jean-Michel Jarre's concerts in China the theme, the mascot, the whole vibe of that series, and subsequently the I Ching, the Tao Te Ching series and the I Ching series, and I used it once or twice in Carl Jung, and so I noticed just last night that episode 37 and episode 67 of Carl Jung's Black Books blocked worldwide. And so then I started looking into it. And the thing is, I'm not getting notified. YouTube isn't telling me that it's doing this. It's just kind of doing it. And so I have to go do detective work and see which videos of mine are blocked. And so then I looked at the whole playlist and I checked the number of, I log in as a different account, like the Edward Reib account. And I look at the playlist, and the playlist has however many hundreds of videos. And then, the main Chicken Philosophy playlist has 400 whatever videos. But then when I scroll down and see how many videos there actually are, there's 5 less than there's supposed to be. So I had to go look at each individual thing, each individual playlist, and determine that it was Carl Jung 37 and 67. I Ching 1, which I know wasn't blocked a few days ago because I got a comment on that resulted in my buying a book. I guess that was more than a few days ago because it takes more than a few days to get a book from Amazon. But anyway, and Tao Te Ching 5, and Secret of the Golden Flower 4, which was the one where I moan and wail about my family and how people should stop giving me shit for being a white guy into Chinese things when my grandpa invented being a white guy into Chinese things and everything. Anyway, it's a bit of an exaggeration, but he lived in Shanghai for 20 years. The point is I'm a little irritated this morning, and I'm going to try to let that go. And I can only assume that, you know, Jarre, the old French, you know, maestro, is like, I would rather be forgotten by oncoming generations and all history rather than allow, I can't do a very good French accent, you know, YouTubers to use the music that was composed by me. I know, the only thing I'm confident about is the way the French pronounce the English word me is something like me. I'm sorry. Any French people watching, please forgive me. I'm not making fun of you. I'm intending in a Jean-Michel Cleese of The Monty Python. Never mind. Anyway, so yeah, so what I'm doing is muting the music. So it'll sound terrible, basically. Hopefully you'll still be able to understand what I'm saying. But then the background music will be muted, so the AI is going to like go in and automatically remove the thing. And I've saved the original ones, and I'm going to put them all up on the Internet Archive. And so I'll let you know, for the people who are watching everything, I'll let you know when all those are available. But if I know there's one person currently binge watching the Black Books, but I think that person may have already seen 37 and 67 before this worldwide block went into effect, or at least 37. If 67 was missing, and you had to jump from 66 to 68, and you're watching Meccan Revelations for some reason. See, I give all kinds of like extra behind the scenes stuff in the Meccan Revelations because nobody watches it except for a few people. I do see you. The cool people watch Meccan Revelations. I'm a little suspicious of the people who still like regular people who still don't watch Meccan Revelations. It's like, yeah, I'm still a little bit Islamophobic, even though I try to be open-minded. I like that he's blonde and he talks about Jesus and Carl Jung, so I'll give him a pass, even though he insists upon talking about those dirty, you know, it's like, yeah, I'm raising an eyebrow at you. Like, watch Meccan Revelation 2. Put that on there. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not judging you. Yeah. No, I am. Cheers. Today's beverage. Still, I think I'm on day 7, day 8. I don't know. Cold turkey, no caffeine. Feeling good. Feeling nice and even. I'm down to only every once in a while do I have a little random craving, and then I have to exert my will and say no, and find some alternative thing to do. Like, I'm going to take a bath, turn on the air conditioning, and put a bottle of water in the freezer, and then after my bath, I'm going to sit in a bathrobe with wet hair under the air conditioning, drinking half-frozen water. And that'll be an experience. It's, you know, like, it makes sense in my head. I don't know. Everybody has their kinks. So this is cranberry apple tea. Cheers. All right. And of course, for the incense, we're gonna do our usual. We got it kind of streamlined. It doesn't take all day anymore. So we're gonna mix these up a little bit. The 1 is on top. The 2 is on the bottom. We got a 6-sided die. The 6-sided die says 3. 1, 2, 3. That means we're going with Oud Bharat. Bharat. It's the country that I'm talking to you from. Cheers. Here's the Bharat incense. It's very nice. No, Oud Bharat. Bharat. Blessings. Okay, so all that's left for me to do is to wipe my glasses, maybe complain a bit more about YouTube and Jean-Michel Jarre. No, I think that's all done. If you notice that if you're looking at any of the playlists on Chicken Philosophy and you notice like a numbering sequence is messed up, like it goes like 19, 20, 22, 23, you know what I mean? Please let me know. Like, just post a comment in any video saying, hey, it looks like number 21 is missing from the such and such playlist. because YouTube isn't notifying me. So if I don't like randomly decide to do detective work and see what they've decided to block today. And I use Jarre in a lot of videos, so I'm going to have to really keep my eye on that, because it seems like their robot is like currently right now going through and sweeping all the internet for anybody who dares to use Jean-Michel Jarre. So if I use it quietly enough, then I get away with it. And apparently, I don't know, maybe certain tracks, maybe there's certain tracks that are more popular than other tracks, or popular, I don't know, whatever. Like, who's ever heard of Jean-Michel Jarre from anyone besides me? I haven't. I mean, never mind. Okay. All right. We're done. Done with the talking. Oh, by the way, this came in the mail. Like that old joke. Never mind. I won't come in your mail. It's like a stupid person lying. The check is in the mail and I won't come in your mouth. Gets mixed up, and I won't come in the mail and the check is in your mouth. You know, never mind. So this arrived from, the mail. So this, after we finish volume 2, then we will continue reading Ibn Arabi with Fusus al-Hikam, which they've made reference to, at least Michel. Michel has made reference to Fusus al-Hikam and comparing and contrasting and making, like, oh, well, he talks more about this in the Fusus. And then from there, I don't know. I think there's more Ibn Arabi we can find, or I don't know. Maybe we'll move on to something else but that's thinking too far ahead. We're only still. So today, the goal for today is to finish the introduction to Meccan Revelations. I'm determined. It's written in stone that today is the day that I shall finish the introduction to Volume 2, so that when the new cycle comes, then, we can actually be reading Ibn Arabi. And also, I would like to especially thank me for, it's more noticeable when Gwydion is here. So if you've noticed that the sleeves of the kimono were hanging and tattered, they're mended now. So Editor Edward is secretly a seamster. Not so secretly. All right. So Hafiz, dear Hafiz, Saint Hafiz, I'll assume that everything works the way Golden Dawn works, because that's what Golden Dawn people do. In the name of Allah, through, in, and with his mighty archangel Jibriel, send forth the Sufi saint Hafiz to guide my hand to the best poem that I could read this morning to get me out of this sour mood as a result of bucking YouTube and Jean-Michel Jarre. Amin. All right. I read that already with respect. Okay. Zikr. This is called Zikr, meaning remembrance. I feel like we've read this before, but it's fuzzy enough. Remembrance lowers the cup into his luminous sky well. So far, so good. The mind often becomes plagued and can deny the all-pervading beauty of God. When the great work of zikr, or remembrance, is forgotten, I have chained my every dancing atom into a divine seat in the beloved's tavern. What I have learned, I am so eager to share. Every ill will confess it was just a lie. When the golden efforts of your love lift the precious wine to your mouth, remembrance of our dear friend lowers the soul's chalice into God. Look, my sweet efforts and his sublime grace have now turned creation into a single finger on my hand. And from the vast reservoirs in my heart and palms, Hafiz offers God. Thank you, Hafiz. Go forth now into thine own abodes and habitations, and be ready to come again when you are called. Never mind. I'm not going to put you in that category. With respect, what do the Wiccans say? Stay if you will, go if you must, blessed be. Yeah, there we go. Gardner helped to water down the assholishness in traditional ceremonial. Let's continue. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. Let's do this. I'm pretty sure the audio only versions are still unmolested also on Apple Podcasts. So if you notice that one is missing and I haven't put it on archive.org yet. I know there's like links to archive.org on every episode of every series on chicken philosophy on the website, and only some of them actually link to something, because I've been meaning to do that later for a long time, and the Internet Archive is kind of like, you'll spend an hour trying to upload something and then it'll be like, I failed. And so it's a little bit infuriating. So it's very rare that I actually am motivated to try to do that again, but still I insist on putting those links on every episode page. But yeah, Apple Podcasts, don't bother with Spotify. But yeah, if you come up against, if you're binge watching an entire series and you come up against a missing episode on, especially if you're in Russia, like half of the videos are blocked in Russia on account of current events, but that'll blow over, I don't know, eventually, I assume. And what am I talking about? So yeah, if you find an episode that's missing, maybe pull up Apple Podcasts. It's free to use. You don't have to like have an account or anything. You can just use it on your browser. It's okay. And pull up Chicken Philosophy, and there's a Chicken Philosophy. There's separate podcasts for every series, and then they're all on the main Chicken Philosophy podcast as well. And you should be able to find at least an audio or only version of whichever one is missing that you're trying to find. Okay. Well, I was lazy last time. I used this instead of... Okay, so I'm not entirely sure exactly where I was. We have explored this side of Ibn Arabi's work elsewhere, where we devoted considerable time on this part of the Futuhat, and we thus limit ourselves here to the briefest of examinations of his main ideas. Okay, whatever. Chapter 4 brings up the idea, which is eminently suspect in exoteric Islam, of free or general prophecy as the ultimate form of sainthood. The Awliya, which I guess is saint, the saint, to whom it belongs, have no law-bringing authority of their own, since this was sealed by Muhammad, but they do directly hear the divine speech addressed to the prophet. This speech should not be imagined as being located in one specific moment in history rather than another, since it is eternally present. Now, remember, we're reading Michel Chodkiewicz talking about all this stuff, not Ibn Arabi. That'll be in, hopefully, part 75. We'll be back to the Ibn Arabi. The hierarchy of the degrees of walaya referred to here is not to be confused with that of functions. The spiritual degree of the pole is common to other saints, which is the reason why they are not subject to him. It's sort of like phases, like, oh, he's going through his edgelord phase. Well, he's 14 and he's on 8chan. Well, that's, you know, bound to happen. Hopefully he'll grow out of it. That's sort of the modern equivalent, perhaps the Western equivalent. No, they have that outside of Western. It's the Western influence on the rest of the world. Yeah, yeah. The reason I say that in a mocking way is covered in ad nauseum in previous episodes of everything. Everything. Thank you. That guy. I should remember his name. He's very important to the lore. Fade Routh? No, that's not it. Alexander Hamilton? No. You know who I'm talking about, right? The fact that I don't remember his name just goes to show how behind the scenes. Never mind. Okay, it's a good show. What am I talking about? All the human dignitaries in the invisible hierarchy that orders and protects the world. The pole, the seal of Muhammadan sainthood. Not that seal, but yeah, you can stay. You can stay. He's a good guy. This is his channel. If you want something a little more lighter, a little more upbeat, he's good at that kind of thing. Anyway, the seal of universal sainthood are just his places of apparition. Right, I was talking about poles, so that's so like, oh, it's, so everybody goes through that pole. Every saint, oh, lots of saints go through that pole. So the value of the saint isn't the same as the value of the pole. You know what I mean? Like, so it might have, I don't know, you know what I mean? It might affect their PR, their, let's just keep reading. Right, his substitutes. I'm just going to keep reading and not stop to try to figure out why it says substitutes there. Yeah, places of apparition, poles, substitutes. Okay. This is where the account of the vision in Cordoba comes in, as we noted earlier. And the revelation of the emblematic name of the 25 Poles who ruled over the communities that preceded Islam. Don't hear much about those. One of them, Ibn Arabi calls Mudawi E or L, L, or yeah, maybe L, Kulum, he who heals wounds. He is described in more detail in the following chapter. The sciences attributed to him. Alchemy, which heals metals and leads them back to the state of their original perfection by transforming them into gold. Medicine, astrology, the knowledge of the laws of cosmology show that we are here dealing with Hermes. You might know him from another series here on... Is that where it pops up? Divine Pymander. Yes, Hermes, or rather with the first of the three Hermes that Islamic tradition distinguishes. The one identified with Enoch, or Ezra, as they call him in Islam, right? A new reference to the Fatah should be noted. Is that the... No. Quote, is this Ibn Arabi? Okay, let me get into character. The Spirit, from whom I received what I have placed in this book, taught me that Mudawi ul Kulum one day gathered his companions together in a village and announced to them that he was going to leave this world. End quote. Now we're back to Michel Chodquitz. The sermon the antediluvian Kutub then preached. Antediluvian, that means he's from Al-Andalus? I don't know. I'm glad people are making videos about Ibn Arabi, but I saw someone say he was from, like, Algeria or something, and it's like, No, Al-Andalus, aka Spain, quite a different place. They were like, yes, well, he settled in Damascus, but he was originally from Algeria. No, he wasn't. I mean, my God, you seem to have put a lot of effort into that video too. Like, blessings to fellow content creators on the subject, even if they be a little silly. I'm a little silly in different ways, I admit. Okay, continuing. Then preached is important because it elusively offers us a key to Ibn Arabi's eschatology. Oh, I love me some eschatology. Oh. It's the end of the world. Don't play too much copyrighted music. I'm not in the mood. The lower world and paradise, declares Mudawi ul Kulam, have in common the brick and the mason. The mason? This might seem odd. What the hell is he doing? The mason? The mason? That was my dad's. This thing was my dad's. This used to be on like a thick yellow piece of yarn or something, and I saw this and I'm like, oh, that's hot, and it's just the right size. So I clipped the back of my mom into it, and I've been using it ever since. So thanks, Dad. His hidden presence in my outfit. What? Okay. Where was I? Oh yeah, the brick and the mason. There is thus a continuity of nature between them, and they are reciprocally interlocking. It's almost as good as interpenetrating, but we'll get back to them. Paradise is already present, here and now. That's what I'm talking about. And this is why, for example, one part of the Mosque of the Prophet in Medina, the Rauda, is described in a hadith as one of the gardens of paradise, which the ordinary man is supposed to believe without seeing. Well, if Thomas can do it, or not do it, never mind. The, quote, people of unveiling, that's what the kids call them. In my day, we called those. The people of unveiling, on the other hand, are able to perceive the nature of the Rauda in this life. High five. Yeah. What did they call me? The paradisio, the people of unveiling. Oh, well, that makes sense, because it's all about unveiling, That's called OCD. Okay, what? This speech also reveals the subject of the enigmatic dialogue between the young Ibn Arabi and Averroes, which is reported immediately thereafter, and which Corbin has translated. Thanks, Corbin. Albeit without its context. Yeah, I hate it when they do that. Corbin. Careful study of the conversation shows that the problem the philosopher and the boy debated is the problem of the final ends. The best guess is what the specific topic was. Is that the specific topic was the resurrection of the body. That's a fun one. If you're medieval, I mean, who the fuck is still arguing that don't cremate your loved ones because Jesus is going to resurrect all those bodies and they're going to be a little pile of ash. That's going to make it really difficult for Jesus. Think of the children, right? Never mind. We then return to the hierarchy of initiatory roles with an outline. It's interesting here in India because there's the cremation, the charnel grounds, which are quite a thing for the Hindu folk, and then for the Abrahamics, there's these they make them pretty beautiful here in Goa. I mean the nice ones. I guess they're old and probably a little pricey. But let's put some yeah, go in Catholic cemeteries up on the screen, little burial areas. So yeah, like you got to have a little plot of real estate for your bones if you're waiting for the resurrection of the body, or you come from a tradition that used to wait for the resurrection of the body, but now just to honor the tradition or whatever, you're still doing it. Yeah, I don't know. There's something a little more civilized in my mind about just a field of ashes and bone particles and a gray hanging out being weird. Something aesthetically pleasing about that to me. And Padmasambhava, of course, as we talked about before, went through his phases. I'll keep reading. Yes, when the return of the hierarchy of we then return to the hierarchy of initiatory rules with an outline of the 7 Abdal that took over the 7 terrestrial climates. They also correspond to the 7 planetary heavens and the 7 days of the week. And then in chapter 16 of the 4 Atwal, each of which has a position that relates to one of the cardinal points and one of the corners of the Kaaba. But for those who occupy the top of the pyramid, the pole himself and the 2 imams that stand at his right and left sides, Ibn Arabi refers us to chapter 270, the beginning of the Fasl al-Manazil. The most important part of what there is to say about these 3 figures will begin in the early pages of chapter 73. I can't wait. Chapters 17, 19, and 28 might be classed under the rubric of epistemology. I should know that. Thanks, Editor Edward. In a number of ways, what is dealt with is sciences, their objects, and their manners of acquisition, both from God's point of view, how does he know things, and from the point of view of the creatures, what can they know of God, and how? Sorry. These are classic, is it true what they say about Rasputin? These are classic, random reference. God is the state, and the state is God. Speaking of Jean-Michel Jarre, he always takes the opportunity to be like, thank you for letting me into your country. Communism is evil. Capitalism and France is good. Like, okay, Jarre, just play your fucking songs. But, I don't know. Okay. No. Where were we? Get a bunch of guys with their little red books and march on Jarre. Let my fucking YouTube videos use your music, asshole. No. Maybe it's Sony. Maybe I'm putting the blame in the wrong direction. But if you're listening, Jarre. Hi. Big fan. Sorry. I love you. I've been listening to your music for my whole life. It's so good. Thank you, Daenerys. Let's get back to the... we read that. There are classic questions for Kalam and the Falsafa, whose positions Ibn Arabi notes, but his remarks always relate to the issue of spiritual realization, and aiming at defining what is characteristic of the Gnostic. Okay, the Gnostic. Al-Arif Bi-Lala. So, does that mean characteristic of the Gnostic? And I'm just fascinated that they use the word Gnostic. I mean, Michel is using the word Gnostic. I think he's taking for granted the idea that Sufis are Islamic Gnostics. And I used to joke about that. I used to joke about how the Gnostic Gospels, they're basically... so I was drawing a comparison between the Quran and the Gnostic Gospels. Never mind. Okay. It made sense at the time, I think. All right, anyway, and the conditions under which he acquired gnosis, the knowledge of God that neither opposes nor separates his transcendence and his immanence, So there's an Arabic word that means like gnosis, and so Gnostic and Gnosis are words that Ibn Arabi uses, even though they have nothing to do with the demiurge. People out there who think that if you're Gnostic, then you're all about the demiurge. It's possible to be a Gnostic without being like, oh, Yahweh's the devil. I mean, admittedly, it was kind of fucked up to tell Abraham to sacrifice his son and then say, just kidding. But as my priest said, we were different back then, so God related to us differently. No, I don't know. I'm not going to defend God on that one. That was objectively weird. Anyway. Oh, thank you. He should have been here the whole time. Abraham, because Abraham, you know about that? So, usually people say, so the Jewish folks, and then, of course, the Christians, because they just copy-pasted all the Jewish stuff into the first 8/9. You know, if you look at the Bible, it's like this much Old Testament, and then a little tiny little bit at the end. That's the 4 Gospels, the letters of Paul, and Revelation. That's what makes it Christian instead of Jewish. And then Joseph Smith wrote a whole other book, and then never mind. But the point is, Isaac was supposed to have been the son that. But then, like Abraham, I don't know if maybe you don't know this. So Abraham, his wife was like 99, and he was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to make love to the maid. See, I'm telling the polite version rather than saying the slave and some other word for making love. Hagar. She was Egyptian. And so he did that, and he was like, okay, so here's what's going to happen is we're going to do this, you're going to have a baby, and then Sarah and I are going to raise it as our own because she can't have babies because she's 99 now, you know. And Hagar was like, yes, master, you know. And so then she had the baby, and she changed her mind. She's like, this is my son. This is your and my son. And then, so the son grew up and was 10 years old and grew up with Isaac. And meanwhile, Abraham is doing weird shit up on a mountain with a knife with Isaac and, you know, giving him a staff and saying, you know, like, whatever. According to the Bible, right? And then when Ishmael was 10, he was like, I don't know, doing something 10-year-olds do, like tying him up and hitting him with rocks or something, you know, and so then Sarah was like, get him out of here, and that harlot mother of his as well. And so they left, and they were starving, and they looked in a well, and they saw the God who sees me, who said, don't worry, Hagar, your son will be fine, and he will grow up, and he will, you know, have, you know, because Abraham was the father of all nations, and so your son will have many children, and their children will have many children, and they will be like a donkey who will rise up against the world, and the world will rise up against them. And it's like, that's a weird, funny story to have in the Bible. And then 1,000 years later, Muhammad was reading that and was like, right? I mean, basically, this is what happened, you know. And then he said, that's not how, you know, it's always like, it's not the way Moses said it. You hear that a lot in this kind of thing, you know. In those books, they said Isaac was the one that got the lineage, but actually it was Ishmael. It was Ishmael, you know, the one with the Egyptian lady. And then he got cast out, and he lived in Egypt, and he was half Egyptian and half Abraham. It was before there were... It was Abraham was the so Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and then Judah was, so Abraham was the great grandfather of Judah, what was his name? His name was Judah, who was the ancestor of David and Jesus and all that. But then so was Levi. Mary was part Levi. What's the point? Abraham. So it's Abraham Lincoln, different Abraham, but, you know, for when we're reading Abrahamic things. I really did want to read this whole... Oh, okay, let's do it. Fuck. The knowledge of God that neither opposes nor separates his transcendence and his eminence. The idea of return toward the creatures, which will be developed at length in chapter 45, quickly shows up here. The plenitude of holiness appears to him who, once he reaches the end of his ascent toward God, his mirage, his going up, comes back toward the world. His journey upward comes back toward the world. Now that, talk about a snake doing a loop-de-loop, or as they say, right? Quote, if you are among those who leave, as opposed to those who remain in bewildered contemplation of the divine presence, and reach the highest degree, then he manifests himself through his essence in your outer form. End quote. I've noticed that. Those individuals are, quote, the ear through which God hears, the hand with which he grasps, the foot with which he walks. Pointing to my foot. See, I was pointing. End quote. The case brought up here is the case of the Malamia, the people of blame, whom Ibn Arabi also identifies as Afrad, the solitary ones, or the unparalleled ones, a description of whom is given in chapter 23 and then in chapters 30, 31, and 32, where they are referred to as the horsemen, or camel riders. Ibn Arabi. That, be nice. Don't be racist. No, just kidding. That's jockeys. I'll just keep reading. This particular citation gives us insight into their characteristics. Quote, know, K-N-O-W, and may God assist you, that this chapter deals with those servants of God that are called the Malamiyya, that is, the spiritual men who possess the very highest degree of walaya. There is nothing above them but the degree of law-bringing prophecy. Their station is the station called the station of proximity. Their specific verse in the Quran is the Houris enclosed in tents. Houris, nothing weird. Quran 55:72. A verse that, with this description of women, oh no, it is something weird. Yeah, no, it's the thoughts that manifest as, 72 virgins in paradise or whatever. Like when you're fantasizing and you're like, oh yeah, the perfect woman based on an anime I saw, right? Those, I assume, right? It could only be that. Because they couldn't possibly be actual people. Can you imagine? Like, just being like, I exist. What is my destiny? Well, you're going to be in this guy's paradise in his afterlife. Oh, well, what do? Whatever he wants you to. Like, I don't think that a God would, not a loving God, right? Never mind. The Houris enclosed in tents. No, we read that already. The description of women in paradise and its Houris tells us about the souls of those men of God that he has chosen for himself, that he has preserved, that he has enclosed in the tents of divine jealousy in every corner of the universe, such that no gaze can fall upon them and distract them. But no, the gaze of the creatures could not possibly distract them. God has enclosed, this is Ibn Arabi, this is a quote, God has enclosed their outer forms in the tents of ordinary actions. It's a metaphor. Good. And customary devotions, such that, from the point of view of apparent practices, they devote themselves only to obligatory devotions or to habitual supererogatory devotions. They do not make themselves noticeable with miracles. Yeah, I stopped doing that a while ago. Gets too much attention from the normies. People do not glorify them. Don't glorify me. Stop it. Stop. They do not make themselves no, I read that. They do not point at them because of their piety. No piety here. That one wasn't ironic. In the sense that people commonly understand. Yeah, not as commonly understood. That part is also not ironic. Even though no evil can be imputed to them. Or can it? Nah. I know there's a few YouTube commenters who think that I'm pretty evil. And then they get blocked and we never hear from them again. Fundies. Gotta love them. My ancestors were fundies down the maternal line, so... Oh, God bless. Bless your heart, as they say in the South. They are the ones, I'll pray for you. They are the ones who remain hidden. They are pious, the faithful guardians of the repository in the universe. End quote. Now on YouTube. Never mind. I'll stop fucking around. The hidden, this is no longer Ibn Arabi, we're back to Michel. This hidden holiness takes place in the law, and through it. Sharia law? Yes. Parallel to the hierarchy of the roles they play and their degrees, a typology of forms of walaya begins to be drawn out in this part of the Fasl al-Ma'arif. It will be elaborated upon in the last chapter, chapter 73, and even more so in the following sections. In Ibn Arabi, this typology is fundamentally based on the idea of prophetic heritage. Each of the 124,000 prophets that have successively paraded through history, constituting the prototype of a specific world of spiritual realization. There are thus Mosaic saints, Abrahamic saints, Davidic saints, and so forth. All of them are Abrahamic. If you're Davidic, you're Abrahamic. If you're Mosaic, you're Abrahamic. I mean, all my cousins are related to my great-great-great-grandfather or whoever, whichever ancestor is the common ancestor, right? So if I say, the Bailey side of the family, not the Edward side of the family. Clarence Dixon. I'm the Edward side of the family. I should remember that. Never mind. Sorry. Hi, if you're watching. If you're watching, that's weird. That'd totally be bizarre if you were watching. But if you are, I hope you're enjoying the Netherlands, the fatherland. No, it's where we all came from. Down that side of the family. So some of us returned. Some of us went far, far away from any of it. That's my side. That's my branch. The branch that ended the... What's the guy in Dune that... The sterile guy? And so forth, as well as saints that combine several heritages. Yeah, that'd be me. That's my kind of... Chapter 20 thus deals with the knowledge specific to Jesus, which is Ibn al-Huruf. Let's just call him Jesus. No, because of the correspondence between the letters and the vivifying breath, nefk, a reference to Quran 349. And chapters 36 and 37 deal with the Christic saints, but the mystery of the walaya can be approached in other ways, from the symbolic meaning of the ritual practices that lead to it, as in chapter 18 on nighttime vigils, to tahajjud, or in chapter 27 on liturgical prayer, where salat is looked upon as an initiatory journey, or by considering the divine name, whose authority controls one category or another of awliya, sainthood, right, and determines the nature of the charismatic gifts that are their privilege. The case of the people of breath, looked at in chapters 34 and 35, where these individuals are connected to the name Al-Rahman. I do like me some ramen. Different ramen. Rahman. Similarly, the degrees of holiness, the number of which is inexhaustible, can also be put into a simple schematic where 4 successive levels can be defined through their similarity to the 4 levels of meaning in the Quran that are outlined in a contested hadith, whose validity Ibn Arabi nevertheless judges to be established for men of unveiling. It is this schematic, based on the idea that man's vocation is to be the interpreter of the two books that he holds to in chapter 25, the chapter where he relates his encounters with Qadir, Moses's immortal partner in conversation in the surah of the cave. That sounds interesting, but I'm going to do a little trick that I saw Gwydion do once. And I am determined to finish this introduction, but I know that there's like certain morning things like having breakfast, you know, that ought to happen in a relatively timely manner that I shouldn't fuck with too much. So I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, Editor Edward.
Hey.
Hey.
Hey, hey.
How you doing, Editor Edward?
Fine.
What time is it for me?
8:30 a.m. on Wednesday, February 11th, 2026.
And what time is it for you?
7 p.m. Same day.
All right. You know what I'm going to say?
Yeah, you're going to ask me to finish reading the introduction to Volume 2.
That's right. Would you mind doing that?
Not at all.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now let's cue some Tangerine Dream. Oh, not quite as cool as Jean-Michel Jarre, but along the same lines. Plus, they're not a YouTube copyright Nazi. I said it. French Nazi. Anyway, let's finish the introduction, shall we? The structure of the three other parts that can be discerned in the Fossil al-Ma'arif is much less complex. Chapters 59 to 65 gather eschatological details that will be expanded upon in chapter 371, the esoteric interpretation of which is scattered throughout the Futuhats. Yeah, I like Michel Chodkiewicz always wants to give him the benefit of the doubt and say, oh, all this end of the world stuff, it's a metaphor for an alchemical internal spiritual process, you see. If only Ibn Arabi would make that plain. But I like Michel Chodkiewicz's interpretation of that, and I wish that it were true. I would like to think that it is true. Esoteric, yes, and in no way allegorical in the philosophical sense. Yeah, not allegorical, that's the thing. I'll keep reading. Maybe he's going to say. To avoid the image the common believer might have, paradise and hell are not simple metaphors. The rivers and gardens in the former, and the tortures in the latter, are real. Oh, goody. What kind of torture? There's a ball and gag and strapped to a cross and 50 shades of... Just as the resurrection of the body is real, bodies could not be excluded from the total assumption of the being that is required by the plenitude of the life to come, but this future is such only for our blind eyes. In the eyes of the Arif B. Lala, who in this world has crossed over the threshold of initiatory death, the beyond is nowhere else than here, and divine promises are fulfilled in the eternal now. Ooh, what do you get when you cross a Golden Dawn interpretation of the Pert M. Haru, also known as the 125th chapter of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, with Ram Dass's book that he wrote on LSD and Sufism? Michel Chodkiewicz. I love it. Let's keep reading. See, Jarre, this is how to be a cool French guy. Be more like Michel Chodkiewicz. Don't be an asshole. Tell Sony to lit. Who in this world has... No, we read that already. Eternal Now. The series of chapters from 66 to 72 is devoted to the Sharia. sacred law. Oh, we know. We all know about the Sharia. All right, let's put the... That's... Okay. Just want to show support, however trite and small, an hour into an episode. That's support for the feminist revolution in Iran. An end to Sharia, or a modification. Let's update it, shall we? The 2026 update. Have you ever heard of an amendment? Anyway, an eraser, perhaps? That other sections of the Futuhat will return to, as we stated earlier. After a preliminary outline of the very concept of Sharia, Islam's fundamental obligations are looked at one after the other. Ritual purity, bearing witness to the oneness of God, and the mission of the Prophet, prayer, alms, fasting, and pilgrimage. The list of subjects placed under each of these headings is scarcely different from what might be seen in a work of jurisprudence, of which there are many. I love how, like, the Catholics also had pilgrimages, and then Martin Luther, just by himself in a castle, just with a pen, just laid waste to the idea of pilgrimage. And then hundreds of millions of people are like, yeah, pilgrimages are stupid, but I'm even more Christian than the Catholics are. Well done, Martin Luther. I mean, you know, I'm just saying, like, kind of ironically, but also kind of not. Like, you have to kind of respect. You don't have to. I mean, I'll keep reading. Okay, what did we... I read Martin Luther for the people who are new. You can check that out. At least episode 1. All right. But watch it all the way to the end. If you watch episode 1, don't bail before the last 15 minutes. Where were we? Fuck. I don't know. The list of subjects under each of these headings is scarcely different from what might be seen in a work of jurisprudence. I feel like I've already read this. Of which there are many, and Ibn Arabi is careful to mention, among all the problems he looks at, the positions taken by the different legal schools. Not in any way remotely similar to the different positions you might find in the Kama Sutra. Unless you're being really abstract, which I would approve of. If you want to write a thesis comparing and contrasting the legal positions in Sharia with... I'll just leave it at that. You can do that. That's an option. I mean, never mind. Shit. Let's try to finish reading this, shall we? If I don't read it, who will? What is more unusual is that he justifies each of them. Thank you. Yes, we always got to have our Madonna. So this is a song called Justify My Love. Here, Madonna.
Needing, waiting for you to justify my love.
Okay, Jean-Michel Jarre. I'm just speaking to him alone. Everyone else can just tune out, just have a sip of coffee, stare out the window. I'm talking to Jean-Michel Jarre. Without any hesitation, without fear of any copyright issues. I just played fucking Madonna. Who the fuck are you? Madonna doesn't care that I use her music in my video, in my stupid chicken philosophy. You're the only one on the fucking planet. I know, because I've used every song in the world in episodes of Chicken Philosophy. And who's giving me trouble? Little Mr. Frenchman over there. Anyway, okay, everyone can come back. I'm done talking to my musical idol. I love his music so much. He's such a good musician. Have you ever seen Amadeus? You know how that guy loved the other guy's music so much and then he killed him? I mean, I'm not implying anything. I'm just saying. Just saying. Like, just saying. It's a
good movie. That's all I'm saying. All right, anyway, where were we? And he did have a particular father. No, I mean, he came from a family of musicians. That's how it happened. It was like he grew up in that, and then someone introduced him to Wendy Carlos or her work, and he was like, I could do that even better because I've got all this shit imprinted in my brain. And then he was like, well, we'll just see what happens. Oh, I'm world famous because... Anyway, that was Oxygen, the original. It was just a boom right out of the box. Like, who's this guy? Oh, he's the son of a famous musician, but he's fucking with keyboards. Oh, is it good? Yeah, it's the fucking best thing I've ever heard. Nobody's heard anything like this. What was that, 76? Anyway, sorry. Getting a little bit sidetracked here. What is more unusual? Justified. Yeah, he justifies each of them, thanks, by highlighting, and in this case, in language that looks nothing like that of the fuqaha, the mustanad ilahi, the support in divinis, the metaphysical basis of each point of view and its opposing view. There is no hint here of cunning on the part of a rhetorician, ready to espouse one adverse opinion after the other. It is in the bedazzled contemplation of divine infinity that the source of his irenic understanding of the differences among the ulama can be seen, and in the mercy that embraces all things, Quran 7:156, mercy without restriction. Did I run out of links? If not, never mind. Whose inspired and conscious agent Ibn Arabi is, that the force that moves him when he writes these pages is to be found. For, as he says, quote, the fuqaha have made narrow that which Allah has made wide. End quote. Well, where can I find this fuqaha? And no, it's just no. The information we offered above about the Malamiyah gives us a sense of what his emphasis on the law means, an emphasis that conforms so poorly to the image that his Muslim critics or some of his Western defenders have presented of Ibn Arabi. What was that? What his emphasis on the law means. An emphasis that conforms so poorly to the image that his Muslim... Okay. So the, dogmatic normie Muslims that criticize Ibn Arabi and the fruity New Age, Sufis, this guy, man. Both are ignoring how much of a stickler he is for Sharia law. All right, fair enough. At least Michelle and I are kind of on the same page there, even though Michelle is one of the top foremost Western defender. It's good that he's able to be self-aware enough to point out the flaw in his own position. Anyway, it might be best summed up by saying that a little knowledge takes us away from the Sharia, but a lot takes us back to it. Okay, I'll just keep reading. The last part of the first fossil has only one long chapter. Chapter 73. It can be read as a synthesis of all that precedes it. All the precedes it? All the precedes it. Who translated this into English? Hello. Proofread much? This synthesis is further divided into two subsets. One is a classification of the categories of men of God, which states, in other words, the fundamental concepts of prophetology and Ibn Arabi's hagiology, study of saints. I finally stuck. Hagiology. Prophetology is obvious, right? The study of prophets. Hagiology, the study of hags. No, the study of saints. The other, which is 100 pages long in the Cairo edition, answers 155 of the questions asked 3 centuries earlier as a challenge by Hakim Tirmidhi in his Khatam al-Awliya. Is that the one that's like, why did it come into existence? What does it want? That one, from the beginning, from episode 1 of Meccan Revelation. Anybody remember that? That was so long ago. A work whose title brings up the mysterious term, quote, seal of the saints. That Ibn Arabi would have to explain. Got some splaining to do, Lucy. All the significant themes already encountered in the 72 preceding chapters here reappear in an often quite dense form, and in an order that is clearly different, the order imposed by the list of questions raised by Tirmidhi, but which shows even more clearly the relationship between the subjects approached in the Fasl al-Ma'arif and the completion of the course taken. Oh God, I was hoping that this would be the last page. Fuck. All right, there's three more pages and change. Sorry, in the Walaya, in sainthood, whatever I had just said ends that way. Ibn Arabi is neither a theoretician nor a grammarian of esotericism, as some have chosen to call him. Okay, says Michel. I'll go with it. Sure, I'm on Michel's side here. All his teaching, including in its most abstract aspects, is arranged with one goal in mind, that of reestablishing man in his dignity as imago Dei, parentheses, nuskat al-haq, end parentheses, pro tip. When you're writing to English readers and you say something in Latin, and then in parentheses you translate that. Translate it into English, not fucking Arabic, phonetically transliterated into Latin letters. What the fuck are you doing? I know in French you're like, yes, well, imago Dei, the image of God. Okay, fair enough. It's pretty intuitive, but still. No, I have both affinity and a shared cognitive bias. Is that what that's called? With Michel Chodkowitz. I've come to really feel a connection with Michel Chodkowitz over the years of reading Meccan Revelations. And the role of representation he is supposed to play. As we have briefly pointed out a number of times, there are numerous passages in this first section of the Futuhat that refer to what the author and the Awliya he has known have experienced, the saints he has known, have experienced in regard to one point of doctrine or another. Texts of this type will be even more numerous in the remainder of the book. Not one piece of information is given that is not sooner or later related back to the experience upon which it is based and to the methods that allow it to be verified. This operative and not strictly speculative characteristic of the Shaykh al-Akbar's magnum opus, in other words, Ibn Arabi's Futuhat, the Meccan Revelations. Shaykh al-Akbar means Ibn Arabi, postmortem, like, what's it called? Means Kukai. Kobodaishi is the postmortem title for Kukai. Shaykh al-Akbar is the postmortem title for Ibn Arabi and his magnum opus. This great work is the Futuhat, the Meccan Revelations. So there you go. If someone says, hey, they're trying to quiz you, trying to be like, oh, you think you're so smart? Well, what's the Meccan Revelations? Or what's the Futuhat? You say, Shaykh al-Akbar's magnum opus. They'll be like, okay, you came to play. Anyway, is declared forcefully in the Bab al-Wasaya, with which it ends. What? I don't know, whatever. If a logic is to be found in this immense work whose composition is so disconcerting for anyone who delves into it, Little. It is probably a pedagogic logic. Pedagogic, thank you, Emo Phillips. Bo Burnham is teaching related. Pedagogic, related to teaching. A teaching logic. Okay. It is both surprising and disappointing to our mental penchant for classification. Oh, Mr. Fancy Pants with his words. But if we allow ourselves to be taken along, it does fulfill the need of the salik, the traveler. You've all seen that one, right? To know certain things at certain specific points along his itinerary, to lose sight of them, and then find them again. But this time with new vision and a new point of view along the spiral road that leads him to the center. This is just one way to read the Futuhat. There are others. For example, they can be approached like a vast Quranic commentary, right? Which they certainly are. Like Kabbalah can be seen as a commentary on the Torah. Torah, excuse me, wrong R. You got to use a French R when you're speaking Hebrew. Jarre. Anyway, this is just one way to read the Futuhat. There are others. For example, no, we just read that. But once we mention reading it, Once we mention reading, we are surreptitiously tempted to adopt certain 21st century prejudices, wherein it seems normal to think that a book, if appropriately studied, suffices to communicate what an author wants us to know. Well, we would be careless if we forgot that in the 13th century, and indeed up to quite recent times, the book in the Islamic world was not a support all by itself for the complete transmission of knowledge, regardless of how profane it might have been according to our criteria, grammar or arithmetic, for example. This knowledge was not received except under the guarantee of the teacher, and thus in a face-to-face meeting with him or with someone who, at the end of an uninterrupted series of intermediaries, represented him. Yeah, but I'm talking to people 10,000 years from now that stumbled upon this recording who don't have the luxury of, sitting down with some kind of Sufi imam, okay? So, or people today who don't feel like it. Who's going to do that? Sure, that's an option if you want to go that route, but if you just are a little curious enough to watch my silly show, then here we are. Wow, so meta. Anyway, what? At the end of an face-to-face meeting, at the end of an uninterrupted series of intermediaries represented him. This is how those who, throughout the centuries, tried to delve into Ibn Arabi's work understood it. This introduction will not be seen as useless if it manages to persuade the reader of its lack of sufficiency. All right. You mean the introduction we've been reading for 20 episodes isn't useless if it persuades us that we're not going to get anything out of the text? I already knew that, but anyway, it was in giving up wanting to find anything that was gonna make any light bulbs go off, and just instead being curious about reading things that would make light bulbs kind of dimly glow for a little while. Then I was able to open up to the possibility of reading Carl Jung and then all the others. So there you have it, chicken philosophy. Even though a number of expressions familiar to those interested in the Shaykh al-Akbar, remember who that is? Have appeared in this brief study of the Fossil al-Ma'arif, quote, perpetual creation, end quote, quote, imaginal world, end quote, quote, theophany, end quote, quote, Muhammadan reality, end quote, etc. One might be surprised not to find Wadat al-Wujud. I know, right? That's what I've been thinking this whole time, is where the fuck is Wadat? The fact is that the expression does not belong to Ibn Arabi's commonly used list of terms. Correctly interpreted, the idea of oneness of being, I think you went over this in the previous book, but it's okay. Things sometimes get repeated when they're important. That it covers certainly is present in his teaching, but as he mentions on 2 different occasions in the Muqaddimah, this latter expression in its highest and thus most obscure aspects, ooh, I love that, its highest and most obscure, its highest and thus most obscure aspects. Ooh, that's the gem I'm going to take with me. What? Aspects is scattered throughout the chapters of his book where a broad, not like a rude 70s way of referring to a lady. No. A broad and systematic outline of it can be found nowhere. Right. Certain abrupt phrases, there are some in the Khutbah's first poem, might lead to hasty conclusions, my favorite kind of conclusions. Quote, "There is nothing in existence and nothing to originate existence but God." End quote. Quote, "He is being, and what there is in the universe is nothing other than his form." End quote. Oh, give me hasty conclusions all over that one. All over my face. Quote, "The other than God is devoid of being." End quote. So if you be God. Right? Quote, "Both existence and that which exists are nothing other than God himself." End quote. Ashtavakra Gita all over again, but with extra steps. Right? A dozen, even 100 such sayings could be strung out one after another, one after the other. Strung out as in strung out? Sure, whatever. They are not implying that this world is an illusion in all respects. In one small unpublished treatise, Ibn Arabi mentions those who, during their retreats, allow themselves to be deceived by suggestions that lead them to deny the reality of that which is other than God. Likewise, in the account of his mirage that appears in chapter 367 of the Futuhat, the prophet Aaron, whom he meets in the 5th heaven, emphasizes the flaw in the knowledge of those who deny the reality of the universe. Ibn Arabi's Wadat al-Wujud, in contrast to later formulations of the concept, transcends duality without denying it. Transcends duality without denying it. That's the best way, because if you deny reality, then reality says, "Nuh-uh." So you just say, yeah, you're real. Reality's like, where did he go? I transcended you without denying you. No. Anyway, was it duality or reality? Transcends duality without denying it. Either one. Transcend duality without denying it. Yes, it's irreconcilable. Oh, you two are just two different things, and no commonality between you. No way to reconcile. You're permanently fucked. Or there's hope. Whatever you want. Okay, bye-bye. That's the path I took. Where were we? Hawk is hawk, and kalk is kalk. We're supposed to know what that means. Are you assuming that I've been paying attention? To use a kind of numerical symbolism often employed by Ibn Arabi, the number 1000 draws all its reality from the one, without which it is nothing. But we cannot say 1 equals 1000 or 1000 equals 1. We cannot deny the unity of the one or the multiplicity of the multiple. The idea of theophany is capital here. The 3 zeros in 1000, the word sifr, which is the name for zero, means nothing, the void, are non-existent in and of themselves. But when preceded by the one, they express a series of epiphanies through which this initial one manifests itself into itself, each of which is unique, an instantaneous flash of a name that is not God, and that is not anything other than God. Ooh, Michel, you and your pen. Oh, you and your quill. Oh, I love it. I love it. You're like you're dueling with your pen with Ibn Arabi as to like who's the cooler author involved in these books. By now, I've come a long way since the days of come on, Michel, stop talking and let me read Ibn Arabi. That was before Ibn Arabi went on for 3 months about the Mahdi and the helpers of the Mahdi. Anybody remember that? Oh my God. Speaking of Dune. This contradiction, like the contradiction of the Tashbih, the affirmation of his immanence and his similarity to all things, last page, is impossible to resolve dialectically. But it relies on revelation. Proofread, guys. Proofread. Really? On God's discourse with himself about himself. So faith must accept it without comment. Ha. Ha. Fat chance. I mean, for me anyway. Only true knowledge, that of the Awliya, the saint, who know God through God, the saints who know God, not knows God, so it's plural, I assume. The knowledge, unless it's a typo, which it very well may be, given your track record, the knowledge whose landmarks can be found in the Futuhat, can grasp Tanzih and Tashbih, the oneness of being and the multiplicity of things that are at the same time. Dig it. What we have seen ever so briefly about Ibn Arabi's teachings in these pages probably has not shed light on 2 fundamental ideas in this teaching, however. The first is that of Rama. Oh, is he involved? There's a big statue of him down in South Goa they just unveiled. R-A-H-M-A, not to be confused with the Rama that I've been talking about. A word that in the context of the Futuhat should be translated as love, rather than mercy. So maybe chesed or agape, as is usually the case. It is from Rama that the universe is born. It takes shape in the breath of the Raman. Any relation to the Brahman? It is through Rama that the universe is sustained, and it is to Rama that it will return. Whence Ibn Arabi's denial that punishment will be eternal. Whence his quest for the positivity, the mustanad ilahi in every idea, in every belief. How could the awliya, who see the face of God in all things, not conform to this model that God proposes to man, his mirror, when he calls himself Raman before he mentions any other attribute in the Quran? Quote, if we look at something, it is he we are looking at. If we hear something, it is he we are hearing. In every countenance, it is he who shows his empathy. In every sign, it is him we are seeking. Every eye looks at nothing but him. He is the worshipped in everything that we worship. It is to him alone that the universe addresses its prayer. It is before him that everything is prostrate. It is him alone that our language glorifies. Tongues speak but of him. Hearts are enraptured with desire for him alone. End quote. The other axis of Ibn Arabi's teaching is the law, the expression of God's strictness, which is not an attribute systematically opposed to Rama, but rather its paradoxical complement. The way begins with the Sharia and ends with it. Love is the law, love it. No, never mind. The contrast between the Sharia and Hakika, or essential truth, exists only for the novice who sees Hakika as something either beyond or within the law, But if he continues along his way, he discovers that Sharia is Hakika, the Malamia. The highest of the saints live, quote, enclosed within the pavilion of ordinary acts and customary devotions, end quote. They arrived at the law through the law. He who no longer demands either to have or to be will henceforth perform no movement that has not been prescribed for him, and this is where his perfection resides. In closing, we must echo the voice of the Fata who inhabits the heart of the universe in stating one more time.
One more time.
Alright, that's about enough of that. Feel that sting, Mr. Jarre? That's called salt in the wound. Okay, sorry. The precept the Andalusian pilgrim received at the beginning of his nighttime journey, where he was led to the distance of the two bows, or nearer, end quote. O you who seek the path leading to the secret, turn back, for it is in you that the entire secret is found.
Yay! And through the magic of loopholes and movie tricks and tricks that I learned from Gwydion, we were able to accomplish our goal today. And we made it a little bit of a long one. That's what she said. Cheers. Tetelestai. We not only finished the introduction to Volume 2 of the Meccan Revelations, but we finished this cycle of 15. Notice the yellow and green one? That's us. That's where we are now. And if you're not seeing that stuff, you didn't maximize it. Why didn't you maximize it? Right? I'll stop. Or will I? I don't know. Alright. So, sorry I was grouchy about YouTube and Jarre, but I don't know. I think maybe that's entertaining. Sometimes I think, oh, this was a terrible one. I was grouchy. And people are like, that was so funny how you were all pissed off about that. Like, oh. So I don't know. It's a little unpredictable. I'm never quite sure. Sometimes I put a lot of work into something. I put a lot of heart into an episode. And then, like, not only does nobody watch it, but YouTube decides to, like, nerf it. You know, like, it gets up to, like, 13 likes. And then YouTube's like, 3. Like, why? And it's like, I don't know. To prevent, like, scams or whatever. I'm like, I'm a micro fucking YouTuber. Like, leave me alone, you know? Let me have my 13 likes. Jesus Christ. Anyway, so I don't know. I never quite know. I mean, these days it's like, okay, Divine Pymander and Nag Hammadi, people like that. All right. There's like 20 new subscribers now from just that. So I'm like, really? And one person actually watched the Divine Pymander enough to click thumbs down. I wonder if people are actually watching that, because, like, the thing is, like, I talk shit the entire time, and I'm wondering if people are like, he's saying all the shit that I think when I read it, but I don't want to say it out loud, and I just pretend, oh, yes, it's very nice, are we done with this? Can I go now? You know, but I'm reading it and saying, that doesn't make sense, that's stupid, that's foolish, oh, who do you think you are? Oh, ha, and they're like, yeah, he's saying all this shit that, you know what I mean? Maybe that's what's going on. Maybe people are actually watching it and saying, yes, I'm going to intentionally subscribe to this channel, even knowing that this is the way that he's talking about the Divine Pymander. I don't know. Or some people are like, well, I wish you wouldn't be so disrespectful. But it's good that he's blonde, you know. Or I don't know what it is that make people decide they like things. You know, I'm talking shit about. I'm not talking shit about you. I'm speculating about. I'm being cynical about humans, especially in the occult and New Age and esoteric circles, but generally most of them mean well and are nice. And I think if they were to self-reflect to like one more step, they would be like, oh, I've been taking for granted that the feeling I get for being in agreement with the collective is preferable to the loneliness that I would feel if I were to go one step further and not be racist. I don't know. Like it's like, okay, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and be like, they mean well. There's a certain feeling of camaraderie and hesmodai or something. I forget the Greek word for having a common enemy. And so people like to have common enemies. They like to all be like, you and me, we hate that guy, right? Yeah, let's have a drink and talk about how much we hate that guy. Or just be superior about it. Like, well, at least we're not like those guys. Yeah, And it's like, look in the mirror. You might realize that the thing that you're identifying with as being better than that other thing is far more monstrous. And it's darkness, We've all got a shadow, sure. You look under the hood of any groupthink, and you're going to find skeletons, right? If you can kind of get used to seeing skeletons in the groupthinks that you're looking at, then you can start to be like, okay, but what's, is there anything good about it? Is there? It's like, well, they're chauvinistic assholes. Yeah, but we're chauvinistic assholes, so. Though they're chauvinistic assholes, seems like all of humanity, except for an imaginary time that never existed, that we all like to pretend existed because somebody saw it in a dream or a vision, has been, chauvinistic assholes. There's been areas that are less chauvinistic assholes. There's areas that are more chauvinistic assholes. Okay. Never mind. But yeah, it's like the canceling thing. Sure, individuals, when you find out an individual did terrible things, said terrible things, then sure, just turn the volume down on that individual's voice in your microcosm. And if enough people do that in their microcosm, then it has the effect of it having been done in the macrocosm, but they've still got hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank account, so they'll be fine. But when it comes to ancient cultures, it's like, Muhammad's wife was only, and the other people are like, well, that's how it was back then, okay, yeah, let's file that under fucked up. Even more fucked up today, possibly less fucked up at the time, and in Alabama, still technically legal. What can you do? I don't know. I do my best. I'm interested in learning Ibn Arabi. I like learning Ibn Arabi. And if I'm willing to give Ibn Arabi a chance, then I ought to be willing to give Martin Luther a chance, and hence the last couple years of chicken philosophy. See how that works? So once you are able to forgive a little bit, not forgive, but accept the shadow of your of the other, let's say, and unother the other, then you might start to take a second look at your own shadow and be like, oh, that thing I hate about myself so much I don't even want to look at it, but instead I rant and rave and rage about the same or something similar or something different enough that I can pretend it has nothing to do with me in another, is just as mundane and normal as it is in the other, So maybe we can, be whole people and just sort of move on and accept ourselves as we are, accept our ancestors as they were, and, address and talk about instead of just not talking about and say, oh, that's a subject I don't talk about. Either rage about it, either just take sides and shoot each other about it, or don't talk about it. like, okay, I think whoever benefits from the animosities, the energy generated from the othering and the separatenesses, want it to be that way. And so, with nuance, with honesty, with openness, with irreverence, randomly reverence at times, let's look at it. Let's talk about it. Let's post it on YouTube. Let's see if anybody watches it. Wouldn't that be weird if people watched it? Is anybody watching it? I did a little thing years ago, and every once in a while somebody will respond to it. So if you watched this entire video until this moment, if you want to let me know, say his name in the comments. All right. And with that, I will bid you adieu and keep an eye out, because the next compilation video, what's a compilation video? This is the playlist of compilation videos. Check out that playlist. You might get bored with the early stuff. Scroll down for the later stuff. Here's all the compilations, the thumbnails, and there's going to be one more. We just finished the, I guess, 21st or 22nd cycle of 15. And so there's going to be a cycle of 15 compilation video. And it's a little bit like this.
Hey, yeah, okay.
Except instead of like a 1 second random noise, it's, a minute or two of like, a highlight from each of the episodes. And so it ends up being like a 20-minute long video that covers the entire 15, with this being the 15th and the most recent Edward Carl Jung pairing, blue and black episode as the number 1. See, these 15. So we just finished one. And so yeah. Keep an eye out for that. And it doesn't have a name, but I spoke with Pew, that's my wife, Priya, and she doesn't like the idea of calling it the Nameless 15 or the 15 with no name. And I have to agree with her. It is kind of a stupid name. But I was like, oh, but horse with no name, quitting caffeine, cold turkey, been through the desert on a horse with no name. And she's like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, okay, you're right, it's stupid. So I don't know what the name of it'll be. But when it comes out, it'll be the something 15. And then you'll be like, oh, that's the thing he didn't know what the name was going to be. I shall now click on it and watch it. Okay, until next time, and, next time there's a full actual Chicken Philosophy episode, it'll be Edward reading Carl Jung, and it'll be the beginning of the next cycle of 15, so that's fun. It's like New Year's for Chicken Philosophy. See, I make my own calendar, rather than going along with, ancient Roman emperors, when should I celebrate New Year's? Tell me when to be happy. Oh, is this a Sunday, not Monday? Oh, what kind of day is it? I thought it was just a day. The sun comes up, the sun goes down. But no, it's the day of the moon. It's the day of Mars, Never mind. Happy Mercredi. Until